day, wasn't it? And the Sunday before that, the corn boil. And I meant to say thank you to Arthur and Sharon and their family for that great time we had out there in fellowship 2 weeks ago. So let me do that now. Thank you, Arthur and Sharon, for that. And everybody that helped them. And then last Sunday night, when we were praying for the Bahamas, if you missed that event, you missed an amazing event, and especially the Bahamian worship team that came on near the end. And I noticed a lot of them are here today, and we just thank God for you. You really ministered to us. Let's continue to pray for the Bahamas, and that they'll have a full recovery. Well, will you take a moment just to take fellowship, greet one another? Make sure you find somebody you don't know and let them know you like to know them. Okay, folks, I'm going to call you back to your seats now. If you can make your way back to your seats, that would be great. Thank you very much. It was great to fellowship, and you didn't get a greeting. I'm so sorry. We're so glad to have you with us today. And it's a full house, and that's great to see. That's exciting. And this is an exciting topic. Now, we want our children to be in this morning session because they love to know about dinosaurs, but we feel that children under age 5 and under will find this long. So we're providing nursery this morning, moms and dads. There is a nursery service, ministry, and also there's classes for ages 3 to 5. And so I'm going to just pray the Lord would bless those children now. Lord, we just thank you for these special little ones. We thank you for the workers that are ministering to them, Lord. And we pray that in their classroom they will learn of you and appreciate you, and that they will be ministered to in their own special way, and then join us for some pizza after that. So we ask, Lord God, that you'll just bless them and those who minister to them today. In Jesus' name, amen. So parents, if you're here and you have a child that's under 5 and under, would you just take them, because you have to sign them in, take them to the back, and someone will meet with you, and a worker will guide them. So any children 3 and 5, because, and then if they're nursery age, you can take them to the nursery, and we have nursery provided there. But we welcome our other children to stay. They're going to be part of the service today and learn about dinosaurs. I want to welcome our guest speaker again today. So we're so blessed to have him here. He's coming all the way from Ontario, right? No.
Montreal.
Came all the way from Montreal. Oh, I apologize. You're much closer than I thought. His name is Mr. Gus Olsthoom. And that's not a picture of him. He's live with us today. And would you make him welcome on the island as he comes and ministers to us?
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you. Thank you very much. Some people ask me where I get my name. I said my father. So it's actually a Dutch name. I was born Augustinus Corinus Johannes Olsthoom. It was so long my mother didn't even use it. She just called me Gus. That's a short contraction from Augustinus. And so I live in Montreal. I'm a proud father of 4 grown sons and an even prouder grandfather of 4 grandchildren. I think grandchildren are the best. I should 7 down to 1, so they're wonderful. I should have gone straight to grandchildren. It was so wonderful. This is actually not my first time in Charlottetown. A number of years ago, we did camping in Charlottetown with our sons up at Cavendish Park. It was wonderful there. Went deep sea fishing, ate cod freshly off the boat. All the kids just loved it, gobbled it up. But actually, the first time I was here was when I was living in Ontario, just outside of Toronto, a place called Milton. And George and I, George with K, we drove in early 70s. I think he had a 67 Beaumont or something like that. We drove all the way to Charlottetown, and I had my first lobster here. Oh, was it good? Oh, my goodness. I made the mistake of telling my kids about lobster, introducing it. And every time we went to a McDonald's, can we get lobster? No, they don't have it here. Right? So they just loved it so much, and I have yet to have here a lobster dinner. So I'm just saying. What's for lunch, Pastor? I was supposed to, I'm leaving tomorrow. I have another church in Charlottetown tonight. I spoke at Harbor River last night, and I was supposed to be in Alberton on Friday night. Unfortunately, my flight out of Montreal, which you normally go east, well, we went west to Toronto first. Unfortunately, the flight was delayed an hour. I missed a connecting flight, and I was unable to speak on the Friday night. So the attendance was really poor that night. I didn't show up. Right? So we're going to talk about dinosaurs, and why dinosaurs? Well, much kids, 4 sons, dinosaurs. I got so many dinosaur toys lying about. I don't know what to do with them. And dinosaurs are really an icon to evolution, because you have dinosaurs, which of course actually did exist, and associated with that is always the millions of years. Well, they died out 65 million years ago, didn't they? And of course it becomes connected. I had one guy who's a Christian. He says, that Satan put the dinosaurs in the rocks to confuse the Christians. And I said, don't ever say that to anybody again. That is so dumb, right? But that is a problem that people have, is what do I do with dinosaurs? I believe the Bible is true. I believe God created, but dinosaurs pose a big problem. And of course, people like dinosaurs because they are big. And so we're going to address some of that this morning. We're going to have a break about 11:30, and then we'll start on the next talk. Normally the talks are in a different order, but because the children were here, we wanted to talk about dinosaurs first. The second talk we'll do is on I Can See Clearly Now, making sense of the creation-evolution question, why it's important, how do I sort of frame all of these issues, the scientific, theological, the biblical, all that stuff together. And then after, that'll be, we'll continue on that after lunch, lobster, I'm sure, and then we're going to cover amazing evidences for a young universe. And you'd be surprised how many evidences are telling us that the universe is not billions and billions of years old. Now, I know a lot of people have issues with this whole question, whole debate of creation, evolution, etc. And some people are very adamant. The Bible's very, very clear on this. But there are a lot of people, a lot of good people who have difficulties with this. And I take the approach is I'm just going to present evidence that we take the Bible the way it is written, because that's the way Jesus took it, and I'll explain that. And then we'll look at some of the scientific evidence, and I'll leave it for you to decide what you believe and hold to. I know there are some churches will not have us. In fact, they believe that Creation Ministries International is actually a divisive force in the church because it's pitting science against faith, which they don't think is necessary or needful or actually harmful, and so they'll never have us speak. So, but that's not the way we see it, and that's the conclusion of my talk. I hope you'll see that as well. It isn't science versus faith, or evolution versus creationism, as if it's some kind of a cult or belief system. But it's really compatible things like history versus history, science versus science, belief versus belief. That's really where what the discussion ought to be at. So, starting on dinosaurs. Well, everybody's heard of dinosaurs, and some people, unfortunately, some Christians and some churches do not address the whole issue of creation and evolution. And so what happens is that they assume that everybody believes the Bible, that God created in 6 days about 6,000 years ago, and then the kids go to school and they're telling them something different. Dinosaur died out a long time ago. Long before there could, and see, the Bible's not true because dinosaurs died out 65 million years ago. It's a fact. It's a fact. I mean, Big Bang, 13.8 billion years ago. It's a fact. So we're continually told, this is reality. Your faith is actually fantasy. It's all made up. And so why should you believe it? And so when they get into universities and they go in depth, oh, I didn't know that. Nobody warned me about this. So the pastor is very wisely saying, I got to warn or forewarn, or at least forearm the people about things that they're going to encounter. And so it will not be a surprise. And so we're going to talk about dinosaurs. Now, the reason why I mention this is because there's a case of, actually a National Post, about not talking about dinosaurs. A Baptist girl, nothing against Baptist, right? Because they did not cover it in her church, she eventually became a Muslim. So how do you go from there, right? Well, I've contracted the story here, but basically this was a self-professed woman of science, and that she claims that she's found evidence of round earth, fetal development, and evolution in the pages of the Islamic holy book. Now, I read the Quran. It's not in there, but whatever. So she grew up as a Baptist. She never heard of Islam or met a Muslim until she went to McMaster University and met a Muslim guy, and she fell in love with the guy and eventually got married and converted to Islam. But interesting, where the highlighted section is, Joy still remembers how her questions about dinosaurs and evolution were dismissed and rejected by Bible scholars at summer camp. This caused Joy to embrace agnosticism, rejected faith of her parents in the name of science. It was specifically because they did not address those issues that led her to agnosticism and rejecting the Christian faith and adopt an anti-Christian faith of Islam. And I've been studying Islam extensively, and I can tell you that it's not compatible with Christianity. Okay. So, where do we begin? Well, the Bible tells us God made everything in 6 days. We'll cover later on any arguments about that. And he said everything was very, very good. Okay. And the Bible tells us God said everything was very good. And so you had a case where there was no death at any point. No animals were eating people, and no people were eating animals. Pure vegetarianism at that stage, right? God had said you're going to eat plants. Okay. And then we know what happened. Eve met the snake, and he hissed at her and said, listen, this fruit is very good to eat, and you will know you'll become like gods. And so what happened then after things became very bad? So first it was very good, and then it was very bad. And that's where death came into the world. Now, when we look at the fossil record, especially all the strata, my wife and I were recently at the Grand Canyon and Bryce Canyon, Zion National Park, all those things, you see all the strata in the rock. Why? They say that strata is a record of things that have died over millions, if not billions of years. Well, if they died over billions of years, then obviously the biblical account cannot be true. And in fact, death happened before Adam even came into existence, if he came into existence at all. So we have not only a historical problem, we also have a biblical problem. Because the Bible tells us that God had made everything. It was first good and it became bad. And the Bible also tells us in Romans 6:23, for the wages of sin is death. That's why we're dying. Because the consequence of sin brings death. But if there was death before Adam, he obviously could not have been the one that brought this death into the universe. So, therefore, that's gone. And the Bible tells us that without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness of sin. So, we're hearkening to Christ. If Christ came to redeem us for our sins, to pay for the penalty of Adam's sin, well, if Adam didn't bring sin into the world, then just what did Jesus come to do? The whole point of the gospel is neutered, and it's of no effect. Atheists understand this. A lot of Christians don't seem to get the connection. So then what do we do with all these fossils and et cetera and dinosaurs that are buried in the fossils? Well, maybe they happened after God created everything, which means that they would have been within the 6,000 time frame period. Wow, that's going from billions of years to very, very short in terms of what we think about how old the world is. And that's one of the things we're going to look at, particularly in the third session on amazing evidence for a young world. Can it be justified that the universe is not billions or millions of years old, but merely thousands? That's a very good question. We'll have to stick around after the lobster. Right? So the Bible tells us it was very good. Adam brought sin into the world. Then there was death, and all the fossils and was a consequence thereof. So death and bad things happen, and then the fossils are a record of the bad things that have happened. So Creation Ministries International, we're an international organization in 7 countries. We have more PhD scientists on staff than any other Christian ministry because we want to tackle, I'm an engineer, but so those are the ones who write the books. We have lots of resources out back. These are all PhDs from regular universities. They're not from, some Bible university. But so they have well qualified in their field. We also have a website, and I'm going to ask the ushers if they get ready for the clipboards. Okay. We have a website called creation.com, very simple. And we've got about 12,000 articles on every topic related to creation and evolution. And if you would like to sign up for a newsletter, the ushers are going to pass around a clipboard. Please put your email address in easy to read language, not Arabic. Okay? Sometimes that's what they look like. So my earliest recollections of dinosaurs were from the Flintstones. Yabba dabba doo. And the dinosaurs, their pet dino was? Dino. That is correct. Dun, 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 dun. Wow, it's grilled into my head. I've been brainwashed. I wanted to get one of those machines, the brontosaurus, right? Actually, they found out that brontosaurus didn't actually exist. It was an apatosaurus because the head was found somewhere else. Anyway, that's a long story. So Barney Rubble, and there's Dino, and of course we have all kinds of movies and everything about dinosaurs you can think of. Boys like dinosaurs, and my 4 sons had dinosaurs of all kinds, some that roar, some that usually they ended up biting everyone. Like it was only the ones that bit each other and killed each other that was really exciting. The docile ones were not so much fun. I don't know what it is with boys. Okay. So, we listened to the secular media, and in school, 65 million years ago, there was this asteroid that hit the planet, blew up everything, and killed off all the dinosaurs. But not the alligators and other reptiles, but just happened to be the dinosaurs which were taken care of. Right? But is that actually a fact? And now in the biblical account, what could account for it? Well, the flood of Noah. That was water that would have entombed all kinds of creatures around the world. It was global. The Bible tells us it covered the entire earth over the depth of the mountain. Now, one person says, well, how can the flood waters of Noah cover over Mount Everest? That's 29,000 feet high. I'm not going to tell you. I got to wait till later. But there's a presupposition there that is incorrect. So, how do we know about dinosaurs? What can we know about dinosaurs? Well, largely it is by fossils. People go around the world and dig fossils. And where do they find such fossils? Why, they find it all the way, on every part of the world, including the Arctic and Antarctic. Let me ask you a question. What are dinosaurs doing in the Arctic? Or northern climates? In the winter, like in Montreal, it gets very, very cold in northern Alberta, right? How did they get there? That's a good question. Maybe they were transported there. And Dinosaur National Park in Alberta, I've been there, Drumheller Tyrrell Museum. It's fantastic, amazing. Unfortunately, the Drumheller, the Royal Tyrrell Museum, is more a museum to evolutionism than it is to dinosaurs. We were also recently at Dinosaur National Park in Utah. It wasn't like that, okay? It wasn't as overt evolutionary. It was just simply, here's a whole bunch of dinosaurs. Look at them. Aren't they amazing? Wow. And so we have here in Drumheller, dinosaurs entombed in compressed sandstone. Compressed sandstone. Here's some sand from Antelope Canyon in Utah, which I actually picked up. This is what the rocks are made of. Now this is simply sand. Okay? And if you compress it underwater, then you will, of course, have compressed sandstone in which things are buried. Now I'm leading up to stuff, so it's a little disjointed here. We'll skip these dinosaurs. It's wonderful, amazing, awesome creatures, fantastic. Dinosaurs are not reptiles. We used to think they were. Scientists now they believe they're a different class of animals. But dinosaurs are not flying reptiles. The pterosaurs and quetzalcoatls, those are not dinosaurs. They're simply flying reptiles. Also, marine reptiles and ichthyosaurs and things like that are not dinosaurs. They are marine reptiles. And then, of course, you have the other lowly reptiles like alligators and crocodile. They're obviously not as significant as the dinosaurs. Dinosaurs come in 2 orders, Saurischia and Ornithischia. Don't have to remember the names, but basically lizard hip and bird hips. Do we have dinosaurs today according to this secular media education system? Yes. Yes. They are called birds. That's why they called the original dinosaurs the non-avian dinosaurs, and they call the modern birds the avian dinosaurs, because they believe that dinosaurs evolved into birds. So the birds we have today are the ancestors to dinosaurs. Okay? And guess which of the 2 orders that the birds evolved from? Would it be the bird hip or the lizard hip? Now you'd be wrong, it's the lizard hip. Anyway, go figure. So there are 2, okay, we talked about that. There are 5 suborders. Those are the Theropoda, which is like Tyrannosaurus rex. You have the Sauropodi, this guy anyway. Apatosaurus, Brontosaurus are this type of long-necked dinosaurs. We also have the Ornithopia. These are the guys with the things on their head, such as a hadrosaur. You also have Marginocephalia. These are the crested dinosaurs, such as Triceratops, or a whole bunch of ceratops. And Thyreophora. Why do they use Latin names? I should have studied Latin in school. Ankylosaurus. So there's 5 suborders of dinosaurs. In fact, there's about 55 different kinds of dinosaurs, although there are multiple species of dinosaurs. They all fit into those kinds of dinosaurs. And they got to be very big, such as this Quetzalcoatlus, this funny named bird, right? How would that thing even fly? This is amazing. Actually, there's fossils of these things that lived. And obviously, from a biblical point of view, the atmosphere and the climate antediluvian before the flood was significantly different than it is now. And so air pressure could have been higher to allow these things to fly. What else do we know about dinosaurs? We know what color they are. Well, not really, although they have found some pigments in dinosaur skin, which they think the dinosaurs, but really, by and large, we only know it really from the fossils. And so that's why fossil finds. Now, how many fossils we find? Well, actually, scientists collected almost all fossils, almost 1 billion fossils worldwide. 1 billion fossils. And the story of the fossil record is one in which it's very, very clear evolution never happened. Evolution never happened, according to the fossil record. We don't have time today. We can maybe talk about it. But all we find are animals of different kinds. So when they find a dinosaur fossil, they classified it to one of those orders. We very seldom find any intermediate species. And even if they are, they're contested highly in by the scientific community. For example, humans or ape to human, there's a book that just came out, I started reading it, on contested bones. The scientific community debates arduously that we evolved from some ape-like creature over millions of years. Scientific community, now what we're told in public and what we're told by the media is different. They're saying it's absolutely true, but the science themselves don't say that. Okay? So you've got to, and of course, not that we get any biased reporting out of the media these days. It's all very truthful and factual. So here we have a triceratops because of the 3 horns, but actually that's all we have. We just have a bunch of bones. And in some cases, we have very little bones, and the picture is made of a complete dinosaur based on very few bones. And we'll look at that in a minute. What do these bones tell us? They tell us that these things had suffered diseases like cancer. There are tumors found in the bones. There's also holes found in the bones where other dinosaurs have bit these things right through the bones. Okay? We also find dinosaur graveyards where tens of thousands of dinosaurs are mismatched together. In fact, this is the Dinosaur National Monument in Utah. I visited this. There's an entire wall of about 500 different kinds of dinosaurs, or species of dinosaurs, in this wall, and it's just been left there. And you have maps to interpret all this jumbled bones, etc. Well, how do you get all these jumbled bones together in sand where there are no dinosaurs? It indicates some kind of catastrophe in which all these dinosaurs were then tumbled together, disarticulated, the bones all came apart, and preserved in rock, and that's where they stayed, and we now can go and visit them. It's very impressive. And other things about dinosaurs, they managed to even a complete of this dinosaur, it's like an ankylosaurus, and the National Geographic had a 3D model made, and they actually could rotate it in, you can see different parts. You can even see what it ate. The food that was inside the body, you can actually see it preserved as fossils. Give some idea. It's amazing. Here's the head, see the eyes. So we have we know that these things existed. Many years ago, Christians were told that the dinosaurs never existed. That was a misguided attempt to prevent dealing with dinosaurs. I mean, many times you got to face the issues of life. You can't hide. You got to deal with them. And there are many issues in our culture today. We just got to tackle them head on. Some of these dinosaurs got to be very, very, very big. But the size, they're all egg layers, and the size of the egg is about this one. This is about as big as dinosaur egg that they've ever found. So from a small beginnings, you got dinosaurs that were massive. And in our Creation magazine, we highlight some of these at time to time. I'm going to be mentioning Creation magazine because this we're asking people to subscribe to it. It's $30 a year to subscribe and support the ministry. And you get all kinds of wonderful stuff like this in the Creation magazine. There's even fossil found of dinosaur nest. So they laid eggs. And particularly in the middle of the U.S., in Colorado, there's places where the dinosaurs looked like they laid the eggs and left them, and they got buried and fossilized, and the dinosaurs ran off. So we do know a lot of stuff about dinosaurs. Here's an example of the size difference between obviously a very young dinosaur and the very older dinosaurs. Now, I'd like to see a caption on the bottom. What would that caption read? If you were the big dinosaur, what would be going through your little mind? I'll leave that up to you. Yeah, not lobster, but that's going to be lunch. Okay. So, all right. Some of the dinosaurs got to be humongous. They were, here to give you an idea of the leg of one of these creatures. Can you imagine? I mean, in Jurassic Park movies, like particularly the first one, I mean, the size of these things would have just been ginormous. Awesome. And they were indeed awesome. In fact, some of them were as long as the largest commercial airline flying today, Airbus 380. And so you can see that now. They used to think, like in the Jurassic Park, that the necks were up and they were reaching very high. Actually, what they think now is that it was the tail balanced the neck. And so they were more horizontal rather than vertical, the tail. But anyhow. And how big, what was the average size of a dinosaur? Well, at one time it was thought to be a sheep. But since they were collecting more and more dinosaurs, they realized that the average dinosaur, the smallest dinosaur, was bigger than 2/3 of all current mammals. The majority of dinosaurs were bigger than all, but 2% of living mammals. So majority dinosaurs, they got to be very big. And they lived in a different time. Now, some of you might be wondering, well, if the Bible's true, I mean, what about the ark? I mean, how did dinosaurs get on the ark? Right? Well, this phenomenon here, again, this is not from a creation source, it's a secular source, about dinosaur growth. They believe that the dinosaurs, being a different kind of animal, actually went through an accelerated growth period. And this came out of Nature magazine. So the idea being that for the first short period of time of their life, 5 years, they had very, very slow growth. And then they reached puberty, and then they started growing at an average rate of about 5,000, over 5,500 kilograms per year, which is about 12,000 pounds a year, which is about 6 tons a year, which is about the mass of an African elephant per year. Now, that means that they would have had to eat an enormous amount of food in order to be able to build up that mass. Which then begs the question, what are dinosaurs doing in Alberta where there's compressed sandstone, right? This is the very semi-desert area. What were they doing there? How could they be living there when it's a desert-like environment? What did they eat? They would all starve to death. It's a good question. Maybe they were not originally there, but they were just moved along to there. So, as I mentioned before, they talked about that the birds, they say, are descended from dinosaurs. And here's a depiction. We know it's true because somebody drew cartoons. Okay? And so just imagine the dinosaur is looking hungrily at that dragonfly, and he keeps chasing and slowly realizes that he can use his 4 limbs, and funny, they sprout feathers. And then eventually they turn into wings, and then he can finally grasp that, and by the way, his tail turns into feathers, etc., and he becomes a blue jay. Okay. Now, you might laugh, but this is seriously what is believed to have happened. Obviously not in the picture, but that's the scenario. It's interesting that the dinosaur evolved into a blue jay, but the dragonfly didn't change at all. Right? You would have thought it would be able to do a full bird and fly away, but anyway. So in the year 1861, they found an Archaeopteryx. This was in Germany, they found it, and they thought, aha, here we have proof positive. Why? This looks like a dinosaur with feathers on it. By golly, look at that. Here we have, notice the craned neck, the neck all the way bent back. We'll come to that later. All right? But look at that Archaeopteryx. Oh, here's a transitional fossil between the dinosaurs and the birds. Why? We have it. We have concrete evidence right here. Okay? That's very interesting. Now, as again, the media gives one side of the story, whichever the media happens to run to. Okay? But the scientists themselves don't necessarily say what the media portrays. In fact, Fiducia, a very well-known evolutionist, has said this: paleontologists have tried to turn Archaeopteryx into an earthbound feathered dinosaur, but it's not. It's a bird, a perching bird. And no amount of paleobabble is going to change that. Now, this is a secular, non-creationist evolutionist saying that. He says, I can look at the evidence, just because it has claws on the wings doesn't make it a dinosaur. Birds today have that type of thing. Okay? It's just a bird. Okay, so people say Archaeopteryx is out. Although people will say, you'll show you in science books, Archaeopteryx, proof positive. And you could say, well, I heard this good-looking guy from Montreal is telling us about it. It's not quite true. Right? But, so in 1993, Time magazine, and I took a copy of that, came out with this article, The Truth About Dinosaurs. Surprise, just about everything you believe is wrong. Now, I thought about that, and I thought, the only reason we believe anything is because of what you told us. And now what you're telling us is that what you told us before is false. And now we're supposed to believe you. Very interesting story. Because this story is about Mononychus, a new link between dinosaurs and birds. Archaeopteryx, you're too old. We need something new, right? So we're going to have Mononychus. Aha! We have another proof. Okay, so in 2014, I looked at, now this is 93, I looked at what did they say about Mononychus now? Well, Mononychus, actually to change his name about a year later, was a small dinosaur. And it's currently represented by a single holotype. A holotype is the original defining specimen. Consists of what? A partial skeleton lacking a tail and only small fragments of skull bones including a complete brain case. They didn't even have a tail. And yet when you look at the picture, what do you see pronounced? The tail. I think this is a tail. Okay? Because this picture does not represent actually what was found. It's a fake news article. Can you imagine the media? Fake news? Oh, man, I thought it was a recent phenomenon. Okay, so actually, Dr. Carl Werner, he actually a website, and this guy was the one who did the billion fossils analogy. So he and his wife had visited about 65 natural history museums around the world. They talked to the curators of those museums. Now, they didn't tell them they were creationists. I mean, he is actually a doctor, a medical doctor. He says, we're doing a documentary. We'd like to film you. Oh, well, doctors, yeah, of course. I'm an expert on dinosaurs and such like. So they went in and they talked to all these curators, these paleontologists, experts. And in the Chicago Field Museum, for everybody to see, they have this picture. Okay? And Debbie Werner, his wife, took the picture. And they talked about the common ancestor of dinosaurs, and of course you'll see that little bird there. Now we have all kinds of fossils of these animals. Birds, 200,000, I mean that's a lot of fossils. We have armored plant eaters, all these, and hadrosaurs and stuff. We've got lots of fossils. Okay, so they said, you notice all those curved lines here? These are all give the impression that this is the scientific evidence, the fossil evidence that they found, which is, portrayed by these solid lines. So he went to look at all these evidences that prove it all came from a common ancestor. And do you know how many he found? A total of 0. They did not find any. So then what are these dashed lines for? These are to convince you of this idea that it was coming from a common ancestor, right? Because if you didn't have those connecting lines and you had all these creatures just as different kinds of creatures, what might you think? That they were made that way. And if creatures were made as different kinds, that harkens back to the biblical narrative, and that creates a whole other problems for these people who are trying to promote another narrative. So let's look at the Bible. A lot of people have said, well, you can't go to the Bible for science. And I'll tell you, you can't go to evolution for science either. Simply because it is not a question of science. It is a question of history. When you're dealing with matters of the past, you cannot do scientific experiments. I have here a trilobite. This exists in the present. My question is, how do I interpret this? How old it is, how it was formed, why it turned into a fossil, etc., etc. But I can only do this here in the now. And to do a proper scientific evaluation, I have to be able to do some kind of experiments, I have to be able to observe the results, etc. I can't do that in the past. I don't have a time machine, so I can only do something in the now. When it comes to related to the past, I have to make all kinds of assumptions. How do I validate those assumptions? You cannot. So when you're dealing with the past, you're dealing with the question of history. The question is, which version of history is the true version of history, reflecting what actually happened? And so what does the Bible tell us? The Bible is, by and large, a large part of it is history, telling us what actually happened. It's not just an abstract metaphysical book on some things that when you die, you're going to go to heaven type of thing. It's based in history, real happened. I mean, Christianity is an historical religion. We believe our faith is bounded in the historical reality of that there was a Christ, he died on the cross, and he rose again. If it isn't historical, it's not Christianity. So what does the Bible tell us? God tells us that everything was made in 6 days. We'll talk about that a little later on in another talk. But when were the animals, when were the creatures that lived in the ocean and on the sky created? Well, they were on day 5. Animals in the water, animals on the sky were on day 5. When were the land animals? Well, they were created on day 6. So the dinosaurs, according to biblical record, would have been on day 6 because they were land animals along with the other land animals. And then some people say, well, you know, the Bible doesn't say dinosaurs here. That's true, but it doesn't say elephants either. And you're going to tell me elephants never existed? Right? So absence of evidence doesn't prove anything, right? It just means it's not there. And of course, we know the story is that Adam and Eve were in the garden, and what did everybody eat? They ate vegetation. Well, you know, that's what the Bible tells us. And to all the beasts of the earth and all the birds of the sky and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food. And it was so. Oh, come on, man. I'm looking at that dinosaur. Does that look like it's a plant eater? Well, no, it doesn't. I mean, in our normal way of thinking, no. Okay, so I'm going to ask you about this thing. What is it? Look at those canines. Does that look like a meat eater? Well, any guess what it is? What? Cat? No, I wasn't going to. Right? It's a bear. Right? You see, in this ferocious bear, what's he eating? Oh, man, you get the look. He's a little embarrassed. Oh, you caught me eating berries. Oh. Right. And how about this creature? Look at those teeth, eh? It's what? Dog? Ooh, okay, well, all kinds of answers, but this is a fruit bat. Okay, I'm going to go on a limb here, but ask a question. What do you think a fruit bat ate? You're right, fruit, okay. And how about this ferocious creature? Look at those teeth, my goodness, you want to be one. Any idea? What? Egghead? Okay, well, actually, it's a chihuahua. That's right, friend. Sorry. Oh, sorry. I'm going wrong way. There it is. Okay. It's a chihuahua. Isn't that terrifying, right? Chihuahua. And what about this guy? You may have seen the picture, but what do you think that is? It's a bulldog. Okay. Anybody have a bulldog? Right, for a pet? Right, and lastly, a most terrifying creature that found in the forests of some place I don't know where. But anyway, look at that. It's a walrus? A lion? No, don't let your kids into the woods where this creature roams. No, sir, it's a water deer. It's a Chinese water deer, terrifying creature. So just based on the dentition, yeah, this doesn't really go on eating other animals. This is just a deer eats plants. So, in fact, in Creation magazine, there was actually an article about a lion who would not eat meat. Actually, he refused to eat meat. Snubbed his nose at meat. And he even is offered a nice slab of meat. Said, oh, disgusting. Right? And in the article, zoologists said this is probably one of the healthiest lions they saw. Didn't eat meat. And so looking at the teeth, if you didn't have those sharp teeth, I guess that means you didn't eat meat. Right? So obviously this creature couldn't eat meat. Right? Yeah. Mm-mm. That ain't lobster. Ah, suffering. Okay. And of course the Bible tells us what happened to the earth. Everything was very good and then it became bad, and Adam and Eve, particularly Adam, caused this. And Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden, and that's where death came from. And the angels were there to prevent them from going back in. Otherwise, they might eat from the tree of life and live forever. God's judgment meant that we all are going to die. And so prior to that, dinosaurs and animals, all that would have lived in harmony with each other. They wouldn't have been killing each other. You know, the Bible tells us that's going to be restored a time when the lamb and the lion will lie down together. And children will be able to play with vipers. That's not the world we have today. The world we have today is cruel and vicious, and not just in the animal realm, in the human realm. Cruel and vicious. And that's what happened to Adam and Eve after they sinned. The dinosaurs began to eat and kill each other, and of course humans, if they can find them. And here's a very interesting fossil of a triceratops in some kind of a raptor. It had been, you can see the hook here of the raptor and on one of the shoulder blades and a crest of the dinosaur. They were locked in mortal combat when water came in and debris and buried them and locked them in position. And thousands of years later, we get to pull it apart and see what happened. So what about the dinosaurs? Did they die off by an extinction event? Okay. I'm just waiting, looking for a break here. But it's all so good. Can't stop. So, pardon? We love it. Oh, I know. So what about dinosaur extinction? What's an asteroid? Well, this is the asteroid impact. Actually, there's about 100 impact or theories about how the dinosaurs died. Impact theory happens to be one of them. It's also interesting that none of the other reptiles died while the dinosaurs did. But we do know the real cause of dinosaur extinction. Okay. Children, if you're paying attention, don't smoke. Okay. Actually, they should put that on cigarette packs now, right? So depictions of animals or dinosaurs on the ark are rather, well, a little cartoonish. In fact, neither Creation Ministries International or Answers in Genesis, if you go to the Ark Encounter, they will not have any books that show arks like this or like this. I mean, it's obviously ludicrous and ridiculous. And a lot of people, in their mind, it's like a fantasy. Well, actually, people have made a full-size ark. A Dutchman, by the way, in Holland actually made, or the Netherlands, made this full-size ark on a barge. He was actually going to float it across the Atlantic to the Brazil Olympics. Never was able to do that. But in Kentucky, okay, there is actually a full, anybody been there to the Ark Encounter in Kentucky? I say I've been there. It's highly, it's well worth the trip. This is a full-size ark put out by our sister organization, Answers in Genesis. This is the largest wooden structure in the United States. Built a lot with Amish labor. Okay? Gives you some idea of it. It is a theme park. Costs them a lot of money. And here you can see what's inside. It's huge. It's humongous. It's very large. It is extraordinary. And how big was the ark? How many animals could the ark carry? Okay, yeah. So it could carry 522 railway car capacity. That's a lot. And if you put 240 sheep in each, it could have a capacity of almost 125,000 sheep. Mind you, they won't be happy. But there'll be a lot of sheep in there. Okay? So it's a huge capacity. But how many animals actually needed to go on the ark? Right? So that's what the question. People are throwing out, oh, there's millions of species on the ark. I mean, animals, they can't all fit on the ark. And how do you get those huge monsters, dinosaurs? Oh, it's all stupid, right? But actually, John Woodmanthorpe did a study, and the book's out there on a case study of the ark into all aspects of the ark. It's about an inch thick, very well done. He said there's only needed to be about 16,000 animals needed to go on the ark. About 8,000 pairs, because they represent the different kinds from which, and we'll cover that later on, from which all the different species did actually come from. And so, for example, creationists and evolution actually believe in this idea of natural selection, whereby you have from original kind, you have the various varieties spring forth. If animal breeders know this is how it works, you crossbreed them and eventually get different kinds. So, from an original archetype, an original type, you have all these various species of dogs, even these mutants at the bottom here, you know, these are all descended from a common ancestor. Now, that's an original type which God had created. So, when you come to bringing dogs on the ark, do you need to bring every variety of dog? No, you only need to bring a couple which had the genetic code within their genes of all the different varieties. So they needed 2 dogs. Okay. Another thing that actually a Jack Horner, evolutionary dinosaur, is a dinosaur expert, he says that one of the things he thinks, and the scientific community are still weighing on it, is that dinosaurs actually were shapeshifters. Shape-shifting. So when a dinosaur is found, the guy who finds it usually names it after himself. Okay? And so, because they want to get on record, you know, this is dinosaur, robustus, gustus, or something like that, right? So it sounds very auspicious, but actually it's kind of a name of either a location or a person. And what he thinks is happening is that he's found that the dinosaurs actually change shape, morphological changes over time. Now, this would actually make sense because before the flood, humans lived over 900 years. So dinosaurs would have lived very long as well, and so shape would have changed. And, just for some of us, our shape did actually change over time. Okay. Not saying anything, but, So when it was young, it would have been one shape, and as it got older, it changed actually shape. I actually had dark brown hair and a full dark beard. Yeah, that was the days. Okay. So I've evolved. Okay. So when it comes to the ceratopsia, the crested dinosaurs, what they're saying is, actually, these are all the same kind of dinosaurs. They're just at different ages or stages of their different ages, and they got more horns as in a different shape. You know, it's a little bit, when you think about it, if we all descended from the common ancestors, Adam and Eve, and we all look differently, right? Humans come in all varieties, from pygmies to guys who are over 7 feet tall, to people who are very svelte, and some people who are not. And, so all different colors. We're all different varieties. There's like 7 billion different people on the earth. So there's only about 60 different kinds of dinosaurs, and or something like that. And so the question would be, you only had to get 120, roughly. So how do you get dinosaurs on the ark? Well, this would be rather foolish because it isn't going to work, right? But what you can do is, remember to talk about that growth, rather than get them when they're mature, you get them when they're young. A nice, cute Tyrannosaurus Rex, only about this high. It'd be beautiful. And with the power of Photoshop, or PowerPoint, look at that. We can turn any dinosaur into a miniature version of itself. Look at that. Easily fit. Okay. No, we're looking at a young dinosaur. So here we have a picture of Noah on the ark, and there's several things wrong with the picture. How many varieties of cats are there? There's several. There's like tigers and lions. But you only needed one pair from which all the tigers and lions would come out. Actually, they're interbreeding. The tigers and lions could interbreed. They're called ligers. And then also you have dinosaurs they're missing. But with the power of PowerPoint, put them in there, right? So, okay. What we can do, Pastor, is have a break right now, if that works. And then we'll carry on until go till noon. Okay? And then we can wrap up this session.
Thank you very much, Gus. You enjoying this? It's very good. Thank you so much, sir. We're going to move very quickly so we get this right back to you. I'm so glad for the interaction of the kids. Aren't you glad to have the kids with us today? They're actually going to be helping us with the offering, I believe, in just a moment. Just a quick announcement. Many of you know and love Nancy and Barry Beck. Nancy's mom passed away, and we just want to make you aware of that. The funeral is today at 2:30 at the Ferguson Funeral Home in Montague. Also, I was talking to a young lady just before the service, and she doesn't have a lot of resources, and she's just discovered that her crib is not what is that word? CFA approved, no longer qualifies, and so she's wondering if there's anyone who might have a crib that they would make available that you're not using anymore. And you can speak to me, and I'll get the two of you together. She would appreciate the help. That would mean a lot. So today, we're very, very blessed to have Creation Ministries with us, and you can bless them by purchasing their material. But of course, there's the cost of coming here and running their ministry and Gus's lobster dinner. We should have got you to bring some from the boat, Chris. We weren't thinking. So we want to make sure that we bless them. So first of all, this offering right now we're going to receive is our regular tithes and offerings, just so we don't confuse things. However, if you're not going to be with us this afternoon, and you would be so kind as to give a gift to Christian Ministries, just use the envelopes in the pews and just mark on that, put your amount in there and just mark on it that this is for Creation Ministries, and we'll make sure that they get that. If you go to the machine, same thing applies. You can put your regular tithes and offerings in. In the same envelope, you can put on the amount that you want to go to Creation Ministries. Just make sure you mark it well. And but later on in the day, we'll have an offering just specifically for this ministry. So if you don't want to confuse the two, or you want to go back and pray about it and so on, we'll do that. In about 20 minutes or so, we're going to invite you downstairs for pizza, and it's for everyone, whether you're part of the church or not. You're visiting. We want everyone to come. Just be patient. It's going to take, it's like putting animals in the ark. It's going to take a while for people to get through the line, but just enjoy. There are a few chairs with tables, not enough for everyone, but there's lots of room to stand around and hold your plate and chat and have a pizza and a drink. And then we're going to come back up here at 1 o'clock, and Gus is going to continue. And we hope most of you will stay. Now, in the afternoon, we're not providing official child care. However, the nursery will be open for parents to take their children there if they need to take their child outside. You can do that. The nursery will be available. And I'm suggesting that parents with children who may want to play or be more active sit up over that way, and they can use that space in behind. And if you're somebody who doesn't want to be near the sound of children laughing and enjoying themselves or whatever, you can sit over on this side, and we just figure that out. But we want everybody to have a good time. We're a family here, right? This information's for family. Ushers, come forward. Great to see this. Who's this young gentleman over here? Sam? Noah? Thank you, sir, for helping us. Appreciate that. And over here we have William. No. Parker, sorry. Didn't get that right, Parker. Sorry. Samuel, will you lead us in prayer? Amen. Amen. Thank you for your giving today. We want to give you lots of time. Gus, how are you doing? Would you like to begin right away? Smile. If you have family who you'd like to have hear this talk, all of the sessions today are being videotaped. Creation.com is very willing to allow us to do this as long as we don't charge for it. We're live streaming today. But if you have a family member, you say, oh, I wish they'd been there to hear that because they don't understand creation and so on, you can go on to Calvary Tube on YouTube and our channel there, and Gus, you can enjoy this ministry. All right. I'm going to turn it back to you, Gus.
Great. We're live. All right, so we looked at the Noah and the ark. Now look at dinosaurs. Remember I talked to you before about these neck here? You see how these sauropod dinosaurs, the long necks, have the arch like this? It's typical of long-necked dinosaurs like that. Where did that come from? Well, what scientists believe is that this is evidence of this creature. It's an automatic reaction that when the lack of oxygen, that the neck automatically starts craning backwards like this. Then rigor mortis sets in and it stays and becomes fossilized like this. So this is evidence of being buried alive. Right? So they were actually living, they got swallowed up and buried, and then they turned into rock in a very short order. We'll talk more about this later on. Okay, why don't we see dinosaurs in the Bible? Well, one of the reasons is because the word dinosaur was only coined in 1841 by Sir Fred Owens of the British Museum. It means fearfully great lizard, reptiles. Before that, what did they call dinosaurs? What did they call dinosaurs before 1841? They found bones. Any ideas? Dragons. They used to call them dragons. That was the word they used for dragons. Okay. Now, is there any mention of dinosaurs in the Bible? Well, the word, of course, dinosaur is not going to appear in the Bible because it was only coined later on, after certainly King James was 1611. But when we look at the book of Job, we see an allusion to a creature called Behemoth, which has extraordinary features. Now, some commentaries show him as a hippo or an elephant. But when you talk about it, for example, its tail sways like a cedar. Now, some of you might have cedar hedges. You think, well, cedar hedge is not very big, but in Middle East, they have cedars. And do you cedar over there? Right? That's a real cedar. Right? That's supposed to be funny, but... Okay. So that's a cedar of Lebanon. This is not a little shrub. This is a significant tree. And so that's why Job was referring to, actually the book of Job was referring to, sways his tail like a cedar of Lebanon. And so when I'm looking at the elephant, does it look like a cedar of Lebanon? And the hippo, oh my, I'd be embarrassed to have a tail like that. I mean, that's not even a tail. It looks like somebody cut it off. Okay? So when I've got this tail in the Bible, it talks about... Okay, and where do I put it on? Well, if I put on an elephant, it'll look a little odd. What about a hippo? It's still a little odd. How about a dinosaur, sauropod dinosaur? That would fit. Again, it's not proof positive, but it does suggest that a creature, obviously behemoth was an enormous creature, and it had very significant. Now, there's a book that we have from Vance Nelson. It's called Dragons, and it looks at all these dinosaurs, and he took pictures of various things in the past which do look like dinosaurs. For example, here is a ceratopsian dinosaur. Okay, chronological book. Now, these were made 2000 BC, 4,000 years ago. What were the artists trying to depict? Something they must have seen, right? You also have this cylinder seal, where actually on clay you will roll it, and you have these creatures which look like a pterosaur, this thing. Okay? And so it looks like a long neck. Now, why would they have depicted something like that unless they had seen something like that? And then Angkor Wat in Cambodia, 12th century monastery, Buddhist monastery, and the gardener gave up a few centuries ago. And on one of the columns, you have this carvings. Now, this has been disputed on the YouTube. You go, guys like Aaron Ra will dispute it. Oh, this is not a... Because what does it look like? Like kind of a stegosaurus. So, oftentimes people see what they want to see. So a friend, a coworker, actually went there and took a picture. Now he's a Quebecois, he's an atheist. So he took the picture, we looked at the picture, he says, oh, it's just stylized hippo or whatever, it's not a dinosaur. Interesting, another guy just happened to be passing by our desk. And I said, Guy. And I said, Guy, what does this look like? He looks at it, stegosaur. He looked at it looked like a stegosaur. I said, one didn't want it to be a stegosaur. Other one was, oh, it looks like a stegosaur. Not trying to explain it, why it's there, etc. But this would imply that in the 11th century, somebody saw this type of thing and drew pictures of it. Okay? Again, it's not positive proof, but it is suggested for that. Even in the Carlisle in England, Carlisle Cathedral, they used to bury their people in the floor, such as in Westminster Abbey. You'll have Newton and, ironically, Charles Darwin. Right? But you have on the floor, you have an engraving around Bishop Bell in 1496. You have a creature that looks remarkably like a sauropod dinosaur. Right? And this book goes on, Dragons, all these artworks. Again, if you weren't biased against the idea, you would think, well, that's somewhat compelling that there was some kind of evidence that these dinosaurs did live. Now, again, they called them dragons before they called them dinosaurs, and in 900 AD, somebody wrote an article regarding a beast with large iron nails on its tail, which indicates a ankylosaurus type of dinosaur, which is an armored dinosaur. And these legends are from around the world. People around the world have seen creatures they refer to as dragons, such as in England and Wales. Even the Wales flag has what's St. George slaying the dragon. Okay. Marco Polo, in his recount, now he actually traveled by land over to China, and finding pizza and spaghetti and not lobster, but he found that, right? And then he chronicled his journeys. And on his second journey, this is what he wrote. Here are seen huge serpents. I'm going to skip ahead. Jaws are wide enough to swallow a man. The teeth are large and sharp, and their whole appearance is so formidable that neither man nor any kind of animal can approach them without terror. Look at what it ate. Whatever beast they meet with and can lay hold of, whether tiger, wolf, or any other, they devour. What kind of a creature devours tigers? Well, it's obviously not a dog. Okay? It's obviously not something that is very, very small. Okay. All right, so we're going to wrap this session up, but I want to remind you of some resources we have. And we have lots of books over there, great. Some of them, like the Dragons ones, are good as a coffee table book. I've given them away as gifts to people. Christmas is coming, folks. Right? Not yet, I hope. But so think in terms of what can I give to people. You also need to think in terms of what do I need that I can refer to in the future. Now we have creation.com, thousands of articles, over 12,000 articles. There's short videos on there. There's also, you can get ebooks if you want. You can get the material downloadable. And of course, you can order the material that you have here today. This material, the books and the DVD, the price you see is what you pay. There's no tax or shipping and handling cost. We take check, credit card, gold, and but one of the things we do highly recommend, a resource. You know, I've read lots of books. I've been looking at this for over 40 years. I've got books on my shelf which are literally 40 years old. They're a little outdated, right? And they're of limited use. But if I was to have something that would regularly keep me updated on what's going on, like not so much that I'm going to choke on it, right, that I can't read it, but something that comes in a little bit like a Reader's Digest, that's just enough that I can say, I get 3 months to read it, the whole article, oh yeah, I can do that. I got everything else to do, YouTube and Facebook and whatever, Snapchat and whatever else, so I can at least cover that in 3 months. And that'll keep me updated on what's going on in this whole entire area. Well, that's where the Creation Magazine comes in. And it's on a subscription service, kind of like Netflix, where you can simply pay every 3 months, only $7.50, so it's only $30 over an entire year, which is very little for the resource that you'll get, the quality of it, and also support for the ministry. And you actually get a hard copy in the mail, a real magazine. You can see one out there. Also get a digital version up to 5 devices. You can actually forward one to a friend. And today, if you sign up, today only, folks, you will get a free copy of Creation Magazine, a $6 value, and you also get a only $14 DVD, free as well, and that's a $20 value on a $30 annual subscription. I think that's a good deal, a very good deal. But it's not the money part, it's the resource. What are you getting? Because as we'll explain later on in the next session after lunch, we're going to talk about why this is a critical issue. And we'll talk about, I noticed the sign out outside that talked about the Big Bang. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. And so how do you get that? I'm going to ask the ushers. Ushers. Okay. Where's the brother who is giving the ushers out? I guess they ushed out. Okay. So when they actually do arrive with the clipboards, there will be a form to fill out, and it's a yellow form, and what you do is you fill out on one side personal information, or if you're giving it as a gift subscription, children, grandchildren, friends, neighbors, people across the street, you can do that. And on the back side, you use payment information, either it's coming out of your checking account, in which case a void check, or the information on the check, or you do it also credit card, it'll come off of there as well. We just need all the information. Please sign it, and then bring it to the lady at the table. You have to fill out to give the form, and then she'll give you a magazine, and you can pick up your DVD. You don't pay anything today. You're just signing up. And type of information you get in Creation Magazine. Well, it comes out 4 times a year, of course, and here's one particular article that came out a number of years ago. So these are two-tone twins. Two-tone twins. They're actually twins. They come from the same parent. So how many races were here? Well, kind of a little hard to guess now, right? I mean, one's very black. They're actually about 16, 17 now, and this is what they were a number of years ago. I can imagine they had fun in school. This is my sister. Yeah, you mean like my sister? No, this is my real flesh and blood sister. No, come on. How can that be? Aren't we different races? The actual fact is we're all one race. We just have different characteristics, and one of them is skin color. Right? All races are doing is separating people according to some arbitrary criteria. Oh, your skin's a little darker than mine. Well, I guess you're a different kind of person, right? Or you're taller than me, right? Oh, you must be a different kind. Why don't we do it on height? My wife is just over 5 feet, right? So is she a different kind of human just because her height is different? No, we're all the same humans. We're all of Adam and Eve. So we need those clipboards with the yellow sheets up ASAP, like 5 minutes ago. Okay. So what else are resources? And I encourage you to get that, right? I have nothing to do with the financial benefit of that, other than it covers the cost of shipping us myself to this lovely province of PEI. Right? Some of the other resources, if you're looking for something which is sort of easy to follow without getting too deep, this is our most popular one. This is Answers book, 60 of the most often asked questions on creation and evolution, including where did Cain get his wife? Right? That's historic. That has historical context to it. Well, I'll cover that later on. But, what about continental drift? What about distant starlight? All these things. It answered in synopses form in this book. We also have books on dinosaurs. Great for kids, dinosaurs, and there's other dinosaur books as well. Online, there's others as well. And ladies and gentlemen, that finishes the dinosaur talk. I hope you stay for the next one. Thank you very much.
How many of you are learning something today? It's great to get an education. Thank you, Gus. I want to just remind you that lunch is provided for everyone. We hope that you will find your way downstairs in an orderly fashion so as not to have a stampede and another cataclysmic event. We want to make sure there's no casualties today. So just if you're unsure, just follow kind of straight down and downstairs, and you'll find the food will be served down there. We're going to give thanks for it here in a moment, and then remind you that we're back here at 1 o'clock sharp to continue with the next session. We hope that most, if not all of you, will be able to stay on and join us. So let's, and if you happen to get a slice of pizza that is a seafood pizza with pieces of